Good evening, Indispec. Good evening, Smilofians. And here we are back again with Career Mantra. Today is an absolute glamorous field that we know of, fashion and design. And with us is the epitome of glamour. The what do we? He's the first fashion editor of Elle magazine, first fashion editor of India for Elle magazine. He is creative director Amazon. He has his own label. He's a designer. He's a filmmaker. He is a photographer, and the list just goes on and on and on. So welcome on board, Mr. Narendra Kumar, an orator par excellence.
Thank you for having me, Priya.
Thank you for accepting the invite. So I'm going to ask you. See, we normally ask a lot of these what course and when to start and all of that. I'm not going to ask you all those questions today. I'm going to keep that to the least because fashion industry, what I feel, is very misunderstood industry by the end of the day. So I
Right.
want you to first define this industry in as many words as you want.
So, fashion as we know of it is just one part of a large industry, humongous industry. You know,
Hmm.
the designer is one role that is there. In within the design business itself, there are pattern makers, there are procurement people, there are fabricators, there are garment manufacturers.
Hmm.
You can be a stylist. You know, the career is vast, and today you can become content writers in fashion. A lot of these things, there is,
Hmm.
and the garment and the industry is not just focused on what you see out
Hmm.
here. There's an export market with its
Hmm.
own parallel line of designers and everything that you
Hmm.
see. What we see about in the newspapers and here are one sliver of the design business.
Very
Of course,
very
designers
small
do
part.
do get a disproportionate presence in the media,
Hmm.
but everybody else's job is equally important today. A lot of the designer focus has been shifting to stylists who do for
Hmm.
film stars. We've done
Hmm.
styling for lots of films. I mean,
Hmm.
the film fashion in India, the
Hmm.
fashion by Mandur Bhandarkar.
Hmm.
We were the stylists for the team for the film.
Hmm.
We dressed all the characters in the film: Priyanka
Hmm.
Chopra, Kangana Ranaut,
Hmm.
Mugdha Godse, everybody, all the whole cast in the
Hmm.
film, and styled the whole film actually. And so there's a lot of different areas in fashion. You can be a fashion editor,
Hmm.
lots of things that are there, media, fashion, and today especially, you know how COVID has evolved. There's going to be quite a shift in how people perceive fashion, and the kind of career options available
Hmm.
are
Hmm.
just going to expand phenomenally. And
Yes.
something that I think, for a new
Hmm.
generation of people coming up, they are at a
Hmm.
great point because they have learned their entire career on the digital space,
Correct.
and with everything shifting to digital going ahead,
Hmm.
it makes them much more valuable in the future than a lot of
Hmm.
people who have been in the business for some time. So for me today to do what young people are doing, I have to reskill myself in many of those areas to match up
Hmm.
to, if I want to last in the business for the next 25, 30 years.
Correct. 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 So now, good that you brought up this reference of the film fashion. A lot of people post that film started associating the fashion world only through the eyes of that film. How fair was that for the fashion world?
I think that there are many things that happen that influence fashion. One of
Hmm.
this was maybe the film itself.
Hmm.
It is what it did was it really made took fashion to the masses,
Hmm.
you know, and
Hmm.
therefore expanding the kind of pull of the fashion
Hmm.
industry. A
Hmm.
lot more younger people want to get into fashion design, a lot more people
Hmm.
want to do into garment manufacturing, a lot more
Hmm.
people want to do fashion communication. You know,
Hmm.
there are different streams that are there that today are there, and that is because there was something that brought so much interest to it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't think it is. I think it was really good for the domestic market. Also, the interest in fashion increasing is really good because the domestic market is expanding hugely.
Hmm.
The local consumers are becoming much larger
Yes.
consumers of fashion. And the
Yes.
advantage today is
Hmm.
there's a whole new generation of fashion, the millennials and
Hmm.
the Gen Z, who are looking at fashion in a completely different way. So
Correct.
it's fantastic how all of this is expanded and creating such a huge space
Hmm.
for careers in India.
I'm going to add on to this point where we have three streams in 11th and 12th: arts,
Right,
science, and commerce. Fashion world is one world which has all three streams imbibed in it.
right,
If you want to become a designer, you have the art and a little bit of commerce into it. Then you have a huge commerce section that we talk about all the entrepreneurs in
right.
the fashion world, where the manufacturers and the exporters, importers, all of them. And then we have the science world, which is the scientists who are into the textile and who are into creation, the scientists, the textile scientists. So there are all three imbibed in one. In fact,
And science going ahead, ever
hmm,
since we discovered filament yarn,
hmm,
has moved so much from polyester filament yarn to what it can do. Is
yes,
so much so today it has moved
yes,
so much further. I must say that there's a line that I've created which is called Alcis Nari. It's a sportswear
hmm,
line made
okay,
entirely out of recycled plastic bottles. But the
wow,
but the clothes have dry tech,
hmm,
antimicrobial, anti
hmm,
sweat, all of those kind of things, and are 100% recyclable. So technology has moved there also in a big place, in a big way. So
yes.
yeah, it encompasses the science, encompasses the business, and encompasses the arts.
Yes. And still, it is so undermined and so not thought of in the way it should be.
No, so and
Fashion,
and the good
it
thing
is
is,
beyond the glamour. I want to introduce the fashion world now beyond the glamour. There
yeah,
is such a
so
huge market behind it.
right. No, so
Hmm.
the thing is, today what I have seen, and in my own case, I did design, but
Hmm.
I could be the fashion editor. I do collaborations with multiple brands. I could be a
Hmm.
filmmaker. I could be a creative director. And fashion is a kind of ground from which you develop one sense of aesthetics that
Hmm.
can roll across many different areas, many different careers in life. And, you know, me, perfect example of that, being able to do so many different things from having done fashion.
Yeah. So how did you go around? In 11th and 12th, did you pick up science or arts? What was the stream of
I did not have a particularly great academic life. You know, uh,
But still,
yes,
you passed through NIFT. Hello. Hello.
no, 10th,
Getting to
10th, 11th,
NIFT is in itself a big thing.
I came last in my class in the 10th. I failed in
Absolutely.
my 12th standard.
Oh, shit.
I passed my bachelor's in science in chemistry
Uh-huh.
with 43% marks after copying.
Wow.
And so really it was, and so academics was really not my story, as you
Huh.
saw.
Hmm.
But and so I graduated, and my first job was selling photocopies at Nariman Point in Bombay, 15 paisa
Hmm.
copy, office to office. That's what I did.
Hmm.
And then from that, my second job was really selling glass and glass bottles for 5 6 years, six
Hmm.
years actually, before I decided that I should apply to join NIFT. And so before all of that, while I had an interest in fashion while I was even young in college,
Hmm. Hmm.
I used to use my, cliche story, my mother's sewing machine to change the flare of my trousers or increase the flare, decrease the flare as the fashion trends went on, kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
and so I had a little bit of interest, but at that time there were no real schools for men to go to learn sewing crafts
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
design, and
Hmm.
NIFT was the first school that really in that I was had allowed boys to be study fashion. First real fashion school in India, kind of thing.
Wow.
So I had to wait for
Which
some
year
time.
was
I had to
this?
work for a while before I went back to school. And then, some of the professors who were there from the US on the board who were interviewing asked me, "Aren't you too old to do this course?"
Hmm.
I said to them, I have given up the job that I was doing where I was a marketing manager earning a lot of money over the
Hmm.
last 1 year. I dropped that
Hmm.
1 year ago to take some kind of field training, like you
Hmm.
asked for 1 year's interest. And I'm here. And whether you give me admission or not,
Hmm.
this is my chosen field now. And I will
Hmm.
look ahead from here.
Wow.
And
Which
I
year
didn't
was
have to
this?
look back after that.
Which year was this?
Quite a bit. I mean, timelines are really quite a bit.
Say which year was this? All right. If you're saying men were not too prominent in this field, so it's like actually quite a bit. Yeah, but it's so wow. And I think it is a very big lesson for all the parents watching this episode. Please don't run after 100% and 99%. It doesn't, it has no value after a certain time. Rather,
it,
if we
it
can,
gets you to some place, but to stand and differentiate yourself from the entire pack, you need
hmm,
to have more attributes than just marks.
yeah, the attitude, the right attitude, how do you define failure, Mr. Narendra?
I
And
mean,
how did that actually carve your path?
so I mean, first thing is I do tell myself that I have to go and do things. So,
Hmm,
and failure is, I have no rear view, basically. So what has happened in the past really doesn't matter to me. What is happening tomorrow is really the more interesting part. And I tell
hmm,
myself, how am I equipping myself to handle tomorrow?
hmm,
Yeah, and
hmm,
failure, and I've had few. Your collections fail, you do through, but you pull through stuff and get
hmm,
through all of it,
hmm,
because I believe this is sun rises every day. All you need is a
hmm,
good night's sleep to get over it, and you can face whatever comes ahead. So it's important to accept one, that you have failed, and then
hmm,
really from there see, if you can accept the worst after you have failed, I believe
hmm.
everything is up looks up from there.
Okay, I'm going to now divide this into three zones.
Right.
First, we will look into the science aspect of textiles.
Right.
When we talk about how, see, there are certain conservative families. So let's see all the families around us. So one part of our India is very conservative, who would not be very happy about the glamour quotient in the fashion world.
Right.
Let's be accepting them, and they want it to be more cultural and more. So even for an extremely cultural traditional family, fashion world has a beautiful aspect of telling stories. It is the cultural aspect.
Right.
If you see, the Britishers came to India for silk and for spices.
Right.
So it has always India has a long history with the fabrics and the fashion world. So the new generation can also rewrite our history in this world if we have traditional people also joining hands and pushing this forward. What do you have to say about this?
uh, I think that number one, for any family, fashion is a way of connecting to people. You have to be open to connect to people,
Hmm,
right? If you are closed minded about it, is really not the place for someone to
hmm,
look into fashion as a career. You need to
hmm,
be open minded, and fashion is always about looking ahead. Even if you are looking at the past, it is about
hmm,
looking ahead.
hmm,
So the idea is you must be open to this idea of looking ahead. And
Hmm.
looking ahead means opening your minds a bit, you know.
Hmm.
And if you have to open your mind, means you should be aware of the many things that you would come in contact with,
Hmm.
that would
Hmm.
allow you to grow, that would allow
Hmm.
you to express yourself. You know,
Hmm.
you can
Hmm.
also do this and say, I will do design, but you know, you go to a school and you meet different people,
Hmm.
and there you expand your mind. You know, you never know what you had. So to have a closed mind and getting into fashion is not really, but you can really get out there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Families, maybe like you said, conservative families need to understand, and that's the first thing I tell parents. You know, when I go to compensations,
Hmm.
classes for NIFT and colleges when they are first students and entering college, I
Hmm.
always tell them that it's the parents who are going to have the tough time,
Hmm.
because they are sending their kids where they are going to meet other kids who are going to
Hmm.
open each other's minds. You know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
sometimes
Something what happens in IHM also. Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
so it is, so really this, because in other careers you're dealing with maths and you're dealing with
Hmm.
science, and you're dealing with analytics and all that, so you can still be conservative. But
Hmm.
here you're dealing with human bodies.
Hmm.
That itself is different. you know Cutting around a body, making clothes for a body, fitting around a body, you're around a body all the time.
Hmm.
So
Correct.
you have
Correct.
to be open, and you have to understand that, if you if your child wants a career in fashion, you need to be open to be accepting that your child might go through the changes that you didn't have.
But there is another side to it. Now I'm again going to underline that side.
Right.
Like like we work very closely with Silk Board, Silk Board of India, which is the central silk board, which comes under the government section,
Right.
where all the weavers, all the silk manufacturers, all the so there is this weaving unit. There is this different states have different art form of embroideries,
Right.
and all of that. So there is a stream that runs, which is a government stream, the government jobs in the
Right.
same field,
Right.
where the very conservative families would want these government jobs, and they're pretty well paying government jobs. They're very well paying, very good government jobs. So for this, most of them working in Central Silk Board are scientists. They have done
Right.
PhDs in textiles and stuff. So all doctors and very, very,
Right.
very educated people.
Right.
That is one aspect. That is the science part that we are talking about, where you can culturally bring the India together, where you can have your NGOs running, getting
Right.
all the weavers together. There is a lot of grassroots work that we are talking about here, which is
Right.
beyond the image that we know of fashion.
Right. So
And the,
I understand, so I understand that you do that, and
hmm,
those are traditional textiles that people come
hmm,
in, and there are traditional
hmm,
careers that you can do.
hmm,
And,
hmm,
today what is happening? Traditional
hmm.
textiles are back in a big way. We are
Big
more
way.
and more,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
the great advantage of that
Hmm.
is a lot of all of that is sustainable,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
the environment and the very
Handloom
fact
is
that we are
back in big
moving in.
time again. Yes. Yes.
It is important that while we move towards that,
Hmm.
people need to see why is fashion or design works, because it
Hmm.
innovates and it moves. So within that also,
Hmm.
I think sometimes innovation is important,
Hmm.
and telling different stories using the same technique is important.
Hmm. Hmm.
you know Understanding that is also important within that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
you could
Yes.
be doing block prints, but you
Hmm.
could be a printer of block prints of the Eiffel Tower. It doesn't have to be
Hmm.
something from a village. The technique can remain the same, but the
Yes.
stories can change.
Yes, so that's what all of these three streams need to join hands to create the the evolution that we are looking at in India in the textile world,
Right.
taking over the world as the world leaders in this field, because this primarily was our first industry to go by, if you will. see long back in our history. And
Because
now the
clothes
second
are
aspect,
fabric, and
yeah,
clothes are the most important thing that you ever
yes,
had ever since we were
yes,
living.
yes. Yes. Second aspect, now we come to the commerce aspect, where we are talking about import exports. Now,
Right,
most of these, we were having a discussion just before we came live. Most of the big labels across the world, they have their manufacturing units either in China or Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka
right,
because of the low labor cost. And these are purely commercial setups.
right,
That is one aspect of commercial setup. The other aspect is the local market, as you said,
right.
where we have manufacturers who manufacture garments and sell it on Amazon or Reliance. So basically,
Yeah,
the entrepreneurs in the textile industry.
right. So there are multiple
Uh,
streams out there,
hmm.
you know,
So, is there
and
any course? Is
and
there any specific courses for these streams, the
so
commerce
so
stream?
so I don't know if you know,
Hmm.
NIFT was set up to actually help the export industry. It was
Oh.
there to create students
Hmm.
in manufacturing,
Hmm.
marketing, all of that
Hmm.
to help
Hmm.
augment our exports. And basically,
Wow.
that was really what it was created for. Even today, a
Hmm.
lot of it is for that.
Hmm.
Where we
Hmm.
where students do come out, garment manufacturing, help processes,
Hmm.
manufacturing processes. Then you have
Hmm.
students designing textile processes for these people.
Hmm.
All of this kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So fashion schools do that.
Hmm.
But what has
Wow.
happened over the many years
Hmm.
is that the domestic market itself has evolved fantastically.
Hmm.
You know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
therefore entrepreneurs have come up out of the same colleges who can set
Hmm.
up brands of their own, sustainable, non-sustainable, any kind of brands, and create their own clothing. But to create
Hmm.
brand, you still need manufacturing technology, you still need
Hmm.
design purpose, you still need fashion communication, you still need marketing.
Correct.
So all of these things, while you can be this, you still need to understand all of this to be able to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
An
Hmm.
entrepreneur has to be an all-in-one kind of thing, basically.
All in one. All in
And so there are many different areas. You look at the domestic market, you look creating an entrepreneur, you could look
one.
as being a domestic person for the domestic market, doing for big
Hmm.
brands like
Hmm.
Pepe, Levi's, and all of that kind of
Hmm.
stuff in India.
Hmm.
You can have
Hmm.
your own brand, or you could work for an export house,
Hmm.
yeah, which are also really humongous, well-paying jobs.
Huge, huge jobs. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we come to the art aspect, obviously, apart from the designing aspect.
right,
Designing is primary, but you have been repeatedly talking about writing. You've been repeatedly talking about now the latest trends of YouTubing, and there's so much to explore when we talk about art in fashion.
right.
So
No,
much you
so
can create your uh, own what do you say design as an unpatented design, like how we have chicken curry, for
so
example.
yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
the thing about having your own statement, own
Hmm.
style, or creating your own
Hmm.
style statement really
Hmm.
comes from a sense of conviction of who you are, because it gives you
Hmm.
direction,
Hmm.
passion
Hmm.
for what you love to do,
Hmm.
conviction for who you are because it colors your passion, and then there's evolution that you are relevant to the time you live in. So
Hmm.
important thing is to be able to adapt
Hmm.
over time, because you
Hmm.
cannot be doing the same thing that you did 15 years ago or 10 years ago, even 3 years ago,
Hmm.
tomorrow's, because people need to change. So those are
Hmm.
really important attributes for anybody, young people who want to look at a career where
Hmm.
they want to tell a story about themselves,
Hmm.
create a brand idea, an art space. And what does it mean? It means, like, for what we do,
Hmm.
when we do our shows, we reflect what is happening in society
Hmm.
through an artistic medium, which is the
Hmm.
catwalk, or through clothes, or through
Correct.
a brand like we do, which is called FKNS, which stands for
Hmm.
fake news, which is the story of our times today.
Yes.
So,
Mm,
it really
okay.
depends on how you work your aesthetics and how you develop
Mm,
your aesthetics over time
mm.
to manage to create your own path.
Now, fashion is beyond textile also.
It goes beyond, much beyond textiles. You
Hmm,
can be a fashion editor and become one of the biggest editors in town. You can
hmm,
be a graphic designer and be the best graphic designers running brands, advertising,
hmm,
all of that kind of stuff. You
hmm.
you could be a photographer and do something that could be great in the photography business. You know,
Jewelry design, shoe designing, accessory designing, basically.
accessories, shoes, bags,
Hmm, hmm,
sunglasses. I mean, there are
hmm.
lots of things that one can do in life. And
Wow.
it's a launch board for
Hmm,
building multiple careers.
hmm, hmm. Apart from NIFT, apart from NIFT, which are the other support? And getting through NIFT is not easy. We all know
It's
that.
not, I know,
It's a
I know.
competitive
Yeah,
entrance exam. Now,
but
if
there are lots
somebody,
of schools. There are lots
huh,
of schools now. Pearl
hmm,
Academy, ISDI in Bombay. Yeah,
hmm,
uh, these are really standard, good quality schools.
hmm,
There's some Italian-based schools,
hmm,
Marangoni Institute
hmm,
Marangoni out here. There's Raffles
hmm,
out here, which are foreign schools that have come into Bombay. So these are really good schools that have great standard. And but what I tell everybody, if you want to learn it free, go onto YouTube, find stuff for yourselves, and you can teach yourself how to do stuff. And all
yeah.
you need is the passion and a sense of
I
curiosity,
was going to
and
come
there's a
on that.
lot of all of
People
that
who do
available
not
on
have those
YouTube.
kinds of funds, where do they go? You just answered
Sorry,
that for me. People
lots of
who
people
do
who
not
don't
have
have the
funds.
funds. Lots of people who don't have the funds. You can learn all of this online for free in different places. There are online courses that are available
Hmm,
today that are there across multiple
hmm,
platforms,
hmm,
where you
hmm,
can learn online. It doesn't cost that
hmm,
much as going to a school, and you can
hmm.
learn at your own pace or you can upskill at your own time. So today the world has shrunk a lot. 10 years
and
ago you could.
also and also a lot of skill development the NGOs, they also have design as their a small part of it, the tailoring and stuff. They have it.
Right,
They will teach you the technical aspect, the basic technical aspect, and probably even fund your stuff. I'm talking
right.
about somebody who doesn't have money at all. So the skill development aspect of the government scheme, the Kaushalya Bharat,
I've always believed if there is a will, there is a way,
there is a way.
and you will
Yes.
find the way.
Yes. So with that, we are coming to the end of the show. Mr. Narendra, one last word to the students and the parents. If you
I
have to give
Yeah,
one golden
I
gem.
would think that fashion and the industry and the clothing industry, a lot of opportunities going ahead in the country. Lot you can work for an e-commerce company. You can do There are so many things. So I would think that, I know COVID is not a time that you would think about as a permanent situation. It is uh, hopefully a temporary situation, but things
Hmm.
will come back to normal. People will
Hmm.
need clothes, and the most important thing is, you might not need a house, you might not need a mobile phone, you might not need a car, but you'll need clothes every day.
Oh, yes. Clothes are
So
not going nowhere.
they're not going anywhere. So,
Yeah.
I would say that there are great opportunities for everybody. If there's a will, there's a way. And if fostering that curiosity among kids is really
Hmm.
important on the part of parents. And finally, I would say, I hope you all keep safe and free from COVID.
Oh, thank you so much. Same to you. It
Thank
was
you.
lovely. It was a very, very, very insightful and a nice session. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
So,
Thank you for
in
having
this,
me.
no, pleasure's all ours. In this Spec and Smilofians, we are going to be back again next week with more exciting show with our RJs and architects and even and even uh, journalism. So, we are going to see you next week with more exciting stuff. Till then, have a lovely weekend. Bye bye.